Newcastle United, Myles, who we'll move on to next. 3-0 winners against Aston Villa. A bit of a bogey team, Newcastle, aren't they, for Villa lately? Before we talk about the game and some of the quality of the Newcastle showed, we have to address, really, the thing that kind of affected the game most, which was John Duran's red card. So early in the game, it influenced kind of the way Villa could set up beyond that, really. They couldn't really play to the game plan they wanted. What did Duran do wrong, do you think, that the referee saw? Because he was quite rash to give that red card, but he's quite quick to kind of go, yes, that's a sending off. I think that's part of the problem, though, because if you see it a few times, you can see him roll on his ankle and kind of fall into him almost, and it looks worse than it is, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, first time I saw it, I thought, that's a red. He's done something stupid there. I think it didn't help that earlier in the game, he'd already kind of lost his head a little bit. We know that he's kind of a fiery character anyway. So you're not necessarily shocked by the idea of a little kick out at someone. But actually, yeah, when you watch it back, it is harsh. It's really, really harsh because there's not really anywhere for him to go. His foot comes down and he actually tries to lift his weight off Share. You can see that second contact he makes with him with his right foot. He doesn't plant his foot because he's really aware the man's there. He tries to try and lift it again to make sure he doesn't come down on him. It's just an unfortunate coming together. And I think Emery's post-match comments were really interested. He talked about how the referee should have taken more time. The referee should have viewed it on the monitor. You've got that luxury with VAR that you can slow those things down. And actually, it seemed really heavily like the referee reacted based on everyone else's reaction on the pitch. And he kind of jumped to the idea that it had to be a red because everyone seemed so disgraced by it. But it was just an unfortunate coming together, really. I mean, it looks like from one angle there is a bit of emotion to bring his right foot back in, but regardless, there's nowhere for it to go. I think he's just off balance. So I think, he can feel hard done by that. And he was clearly incredibly frustrated as he went down the tunnel, and it ruined the game for Villa. I mean, to be honest, they did a good job of ruining it for themselves 90 seconds in anyway, and I'm sure we'll come to the rest of the game in a moment. But that decision will definitely be one that damages Villa, and I think they'll probably appeal the decision to make sure Duran's not out for 3 games after this.
Yeah, damage is done though, isn't it, in the game? And it's so early on, it's affected the result quite a lot. But Dave, do you reckon that Villa probably should have tightened up a little bit more after that? Because for me, they were so, I don't know, not naive, just a little bit sloppy. They were giving away loads of possession and passes. They didn't keep it quite so tight at the back, even though they were up against it against Newcastle.
You could see that in the last 2 goals. You could see Emery's
frustration, couldn't you, as well, on the touchline? He was yelling at his players to keep it tight, and they just weren't listening.
Yeah, we could see it the second 2 goals. Obviously, sloppy mistakes, trying to build out from the back, particularly the Joelinton goal. Obviously, even the first goal, really, it's just a lack of urgency, closing down the shot. And obviously, it just so easy for Anthony Gordon. You could see how frustrated Ezri Konsa was, and as he saw his reaction to the goal. It's just, it's one of those things, I think, which Villa have been guilty of a little bit times this season, and in the past when we've given them so much praise for their defensive shape and the solidity, and it was absent. It's been absent more so this season in comparison to last season. Yeah, it's going to be something to ponder. I don't think he'll dwell on it too much, and it's something I've mentioned with this Villa team since Emery's been in charge. They've been able to react, from in positions like this. So, like you say, they've found it difficult against Newcastle, haven't they? This last couple of seasons. Yeah. But there's plenty of big games. I think the thing with the league at the moment is you can have a bad result against one team, and then the next you'll go on a run. And I think there's just so many unexpected results at the moment, particularly if you look. We were mentioning before the pod between sort of like 4th position and down to even as far as 14th. I mean, it's so tight there that a couple of results going your way can completely transform your season.
With that in mind, then, Myles, after this result, what are your feelings? How are you feeling? Are you optimistic still? I mean, are you angry at the performance, or are you just not going to dwell on it too much?
I don't think I'd say I'm angry at the performance, but it's one that happens with Villa every now and again, where once things go badly, it kind of spirals, and you saw their heads drop a little bit. That's why we were giving possession away so cheaply, and it felt like we kind of conceded that the game was done very, very early. So if you think about some of the changes they made, he brought Morgan Rogers off at a point where he looked like the most effective player Villa had going forward. He was beating Newcastle players with such ease and driving through their midfield. But it was like they acknowledged, well, he's on 4 yellows. We don't want him suspended for the Brighton game, and we're already going to be missing Duran. So we may as well take him off now. And it was like we gave up at that point. We conceded defeat, and that was really frustrating. And then the sloppiness of the passing kind of does the same thing. And it just felt like it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. We go into St James's Park, we're going to lose. And the fact they scored after 90 seconds really doesn't help. The fact that Newcastle have hit some really good form right now doesn't help. Dave mentions a couple of results and all of a sudden you're shooting right up the table. Newcastle are a perfect example of that. Villa were an example of that a couple of weeks ago with some really good results. They've then lost this game and they dropped to 9th. The problem is they capitulate like that and the goal difference takes a battering, and we've got the lowest goal difference of anyone in the top 12. So when you're talking about it being really tight between 5th and 14th, well, the goal difference is going to matter then, isn't it? And we've got to be really careful of that. Like you say, not letting the game get away from us. So that silly goal at the end where Onana just falls asleep and passes the ball straight to Joel Linton, that little margin there can be the thing that makes a big difference in your season. It's really frustrating.
I've got to give credit to Newcastle, really, because, I mean, before the sending off, they were looking really good anyway. I think they took the game to Villa really well. And Anthony Gordon's goal, Myles, that was insane, wasn't it? Really great technique, and he's a player that's blossoming at the minute as well.
Yeah, an incredible finish from him. And you can see that Newcastle were desperate to hold on to him in the summer. There was a lot of talk about other clubs coming in for him. Even Liverpool were mentioned. And they'll be fighting that battle for a long time, I think, because he's a young player with a really high ceiling. And he was excellent. Yeah, he gave Matty Cash a really difficult time. And I think, given where Newcastle are at right now, that confidence is really flowing through a lot of their players. You saw it in their midfield. I talked about that last week, and it was the same again this week. Tonali was excellent, and Isak's just on that hot streak that he goes on where he's going to score a lot of goals in a row. But Gordon, he seemed like the standout, really. He was the most threatening player that they had for a long time in the game.
There's a couple of players that really stood up as well. I think Tonali's been great, isn't he? Like you say, the last few games too. But Isak, Dave, I think that's 5 games in a row he's scored in now in the Premier League, which is unreal. He's such a great finisher, isn't he? And if only he can stay fit, he's going to be a huge goal scorer, you can imagine, in the Premier League if he stays in the league, and I hope he does. But he's 1 goal behind Andy Cole's Premier League record. And I always thought Cole was up there with like this insurmountable figure, but Isak's there already despite his injury problems. He's wicked, isn't he?
That's the big if, isn't it? If he can stay fit. And he's had a couple of periods over the last couple of years where he's hit this, real hot streak, and it comes to the end by just getting injured for a few weeks, and then it's obviously building your fitness back up, getting back into form. I just think he's such a talented player, and I think when he's on it, there's no better forward, I don't think, in the league, to be honest, in terms of you look at his all-round sort of capability and ability, skill set. I think he's such a menace to defenders. I think he's so difficult to defend against.